Like, I realized that I either use and keep struggling or I quit. And at that point, I made the decision that, okay, I want to quit. Like, I really want to quit. So then I put in my mind there is no other option. Alright, so we're back. Now, drug craving, especially heroin for me, I had a massive problem with. I would crave heroin like more than most people, I would say. You know, Matt craved it as well, all heroin addicts do, but my cravings were always through the roof. And I never knew how to deal with it. You know, it wasn't until I did some of the things in this video that I was able to finally stop craving. We get a lot of people that come to us and they're like, man, I just can't stop thinking about it. Like I've been sober for a month or 6 months, even a year, and they still think about the drug they're craving. So there was a point for me when I was able to pretty much completely eliminate any cravings I had, at least any major cravings. And what it boiled down to was I realized that in order for me to use, I needed to accept everything that came along with it, right? So instead of tricking myself and thinking, okay, I can use and, you know, then I'll just quit the next day, or I can use and, you know, I can control it, or I can
just
do
this
this.
Once.
Just this once. Instead of keep tricking myself, I finally realized that either I use and I accept all the consequences that come with it, or I quit. There is no other option, okay? That is it. You have two options. You're a user and you suffer the consequences, or you actually move on.
Yeah, and I think, you know, how Greg just described it is very similar to the way that I looked at it. Maybe, you know, compartmentalized a little bit differently, but it's 100% the mental, the way you frame it in your mind. Like,
unfortunately, there's no pill to take. There's no like, there is a craving pill.
Yeah, there is a pill, but it's not going to get you where you want to go.
True.
But you have to break this down mentally and really step outside of the situation you're in and look at it with a fresh set of eyes and just understand, like Greg said, there's two options. You either keep using or you stop.
I think a lot of people look for that in between. You know, like they're looking for some type of way just to use, just one more time.
Yeah.
They're looking for some way to get in between those two lines, and there's no way about it. It's either you're here or you're here. That's it.
We get a lot of comments and emails from people who are understanding that their addiction has made their life unmanageable. They're really struggling with it. They want to get off. But I can just tell from the language that they use in the comments that they're not quite there yet. There's still the hesitation of, you know, even getting off to a pain-free maintenance program like Suboxone or Methadone. They're like, I don't know. Like they're just scared to make a change from where they're at. And again, that all goes back to the way you look at your addiction, you look at your recovery, and how you want to move forward. Because if you just think that you can keep everything the same but maybe not use as much, or just use when, you know, I just can't withdraw at work or whatever, you're not really going anywhere. Everything's remaining the same.
It's very important to know that we're explaining these things off experience, right? Like, we fuck this up time and time again, right?
Over and over and over.
What we're telling you is off experience. It's not, we're not doctors. You know, this is off experience. Like, we're just trying to share what worked for us. So considering, you know, people kind of now get maybe how you get rid of drug cravings, they're like, all right, that's great. But what are maybe some steps they can take, would you say, to get there?
Well, again, going back to the most important part, I think, is the frame of mind you are using to look at your addiction. So I think the first thing that people have to understand, or they have to realize, is they have to be able to actually really visualize their life without drugs and believe that they can get to that point. Like, square one, there's a lot of people who, there's a ton of self-doubt. And I knew I wasn't, like, when the first couple times I tried to quit, or we tried to quit, or we like got some Suboxone pills off the street or whatever, I knew deep down that it wasn't the end. Like, I was like, I'm not done yet. When I was ready to quit and when I was successful with it, I knew exactly where I wanted to go. Like, I could visualize my life without going to get bags every day, without using heroin all fucking day long. Like, and I wanted to go there, but I I was never able to do it until I was able to very clearly visualize what that was like.
Yeah, and for me, it was like I made the decision that, like, I realized that I either use and keep struggling or I quit. And at that point, I made the decision that, okay, I want to quit. Like, I really want to quit. So then I put in my mind there is no other option.
Yeah, that's a really good way to put it. I was actually talking to somebody who went through an eating disorder, and they were working with a coach essentially, and the person said, like, you have to just know, like, you can't let it be an option any longer.
Can't.
Like, it's over. In your mind, it's black and white. There's no excuses. There's no gray area. You're using or you're not using. Once you can get to that point and just realize it's all or nothing, that makes things a lot easier.
That's a lot easier.
That's step one.
That's like people who go to jail, right?
Yeah.
They're like, it wasn't that hard to quit, actually, because it wasn't an option.
There's not an option. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's step one, is realizing it's not an option and just coming to that understanding where it's like the ride's over.
Now, obviously, it's a little different because in jail you just physically can't get it, but you need to put your mindset in that same situation where you realize, okay, if I use at all anymore, I'm back in the cycle and I'm going to have all the negative consequences that come with it.
And I think that leads to the second step, which is you have to really understand that there's never a good time to quit.
Mm-hmm.
Like, everybody is like, I can't, again, I can't withdraw. I got to take care of my kids. I can't be withdrawing when I'm taking care of my kids. I can't be withdrawing at work. My boss is going to think something's up. I can't be, like, there was somebody we got an email from, and they were in a pretty tight situation. They need, like, I told him, I was like, I understand it's difficult, but it's worse to stay on heroin. Like, it's 100% worse. Like, whatever happens, but every time that you continue to use, you're putting your life at risk. Like, yeah, it's gonna be mildly uncomfortable, but not even physically. Like, just go get on a Suboxone program, get on a methadone program, and it's much, much easier that way.
Watch our videos below, how we tapered off with virtually no withdrawal, by the way.
But yeah, there's never gonna be an ideal time for you to make the switch.
Yeah.
Ever.
And I think the last step is you can't look back. I mean, honestly, the last time I've thought of heroin outside of this camera in this room that Matt and I shoot in is probably 4 or 5 years ago, maybe. Like, it's not even a thought anymore. I don't even have a sliver of cravings anymore. And I'm someone who has a very addictive personality. Like, coffee, this is my new drug, and I crave coffee, right? Drink coffee, I'm like, ugh. So, I mean, I understand cravings to the core, trust me. I'm a sugar addict. Like, I love sugar. I try not to eat it, and I'll be off it for a month, and I'll have a little bit, and I'll go on a binge. Like, I understand cravings. But when it comes to something that you really want to quit, it just gotta not be an option. You gotta follow these steps.
Yeah, you gotta follow the steps. And again, all of these steps, these are the big steps, the ones that you're kind of framing out the idea of your recovery with. So before you even start to, follow some of the other steps that Greg and I have talked about in our other videos, you need to have a clear understanding of what your recovery looks like. Try to step back a little bit and look at your situation and just come to an understanding of where you are right now and where you want to be. And everybody's at a different stage of this thing, whether you're still pretty deep in your heroin or opiate addiction and you're starting to understand that your life is becoming unmanageable and you might need to get out of it. That's one step. There's people that are, actively working a maintenance program like Suboxone or methadone, and they might be concerned about getting off of that, and that's a step. Wherever you're at on this spectrum, look at the big picture, be patient, but most importantly, frame out the idea of your recovery and see where you want to go and where you want to be. And once you start on that road, there's no turning back.
Yeah, another thing I like to do nowadays with everything in my life is focus on the positives of something like that and then focus on the negatives of other things. So for heroin addiction, I would focus all on the negatives of what it does for me, right? The one positive is you get to feel good for an hour or two, which is not much. The negatives are pretty much everything else. It ruins your life, right? And then when it comes to the opposite end on something that's positive for me, I focus on, again, the positive of what it's going to do to me, not the negative. So anytime you have something, try to focus just on all the positive things it's going to do for you and not the negatives.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that goes back to practicing gratitude, which we talk a lot about also. look on the bright side of things. You know, it's going to be a lot easier to make good decisions in your own self-interest instead of looking at the negatives and how hard it is and what you're giving up. Don't think about that. Think about the positive stuff. It'll change your whole frame of reference around and make things a lot easier for you.
Cool. Yeah, so unfortunately we have no Project Unbroken craving pill for you to take. It's all really just comes down to mindset and changing your perspective and the way you think.
Absolutely. I think that'll do it, guys. Thank you for watching. Do us a favor, like, comment, subscribe. Hit us up if you have any questions or comments. We guys love the interaction that we've been having.
Internet.
But
we drank too much coffee.
Yeah, too much coffee today. But keep us posted, and we'll talk to you guys soon.
See y'all.